Welcome to another episode of Talkin Games. This week is sponsored by the letter G. G goes with anything.
Hello, I am Dennis Alonso, and this is...
Matthew Baker.
And yeah, so I don't know. This week we're doing our podcast on time. We're recording today on Saturday, March 1st. It is the end of February, the shortest, most depressing month of the year. Yeah, it's really depressing, really cold. Valentine's Day. A lot of people are alone. That rhymed.
I was alone.
Yeah. But you know what? We have each other, and that's really gay.
And we have the podcast, which is less gay.
Yeah, all of you guys were our Valentine. Did we do an episode? When did we start? Did we start during Valentine's Day?
I think we started after Valentine's.
Probably. Anyway, so yes, so to our thousands of negative 100 viewers, the podcast will be on time this weekend. Anyway, so moving on, we are still going to be only doing about 20 something minutes this week to see, if that works better than our longer podcast. So remember, if you have any thoughts or opinions on that, please send us an email at talkin_games@yahoo.com or send us a tweet at twitter.com/Talkin Games.
I was afraid you were going to forget then.
Nope. I had my Cheerios this morning, or my Wheaties, or whatever helps you with your memory.
Alright, well, for today's topic, first things first, we're going to be talking about the original game that didn't really bring Dennis and I together per se, but that's where it all started, I suppose. Final Fantasy XI.
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Final Fantasy XI is the Final Fantasy series' first MMO. It came out back in 2001, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But me and Matt did play the game. And the reason why that technically kind of brought us together was because of that game. We both decided to play Final Fantasy XIV. We didn't know each other, before then, to be like, hey, you want to play Final Fantasy XIV? Anyway, because of Final Fantasy XI, when Final Fantasy XIV came out, the second MMO in the Final Fantasy series, we both decided to play because it was, kind of like an evolution from Final Fantasy XI to Final Fantasy XIV. And in Final Fantasy XIV, that's where we actually met and became somewhat friends.
Only somewhat, though. We're very, very minor friends. Very minor.
Yes, very minor. Like, for instance, if he got hit by a car, I would stop being friends with him because I do not need that.
Glad to know. If you
Yeah,
got hit by a car, I would probably never hear anything about it because I would kind of rely on you to tell me.
yeah. So, like, if you got hit by a car, and you told me, and I could text you, I'll be like, hey, man, why haven't, responded for like a week? And you'd be like, oh, man, I got hit by a car, been in the hospital. I'm like, oh, all right, well, it was nice knowing you. I really don't need cripple friends, which, like, if somebody took that out of context, that would really, really be wrong. But thankfully, we don't have that many hardcore listeners that would probably like remix that and like post that on Yahoo or Reddit, like Dennis Alonso hates cripples.
Here in a week, there's going to be this article on the news leader. Dennis Alonso hates cripples. Tripped on my S's there. Anyways.
Yeah, on the E network, you're gonna see like headlines and stuff like Dennis Alonso hate cripples, and then right under that, who the hell is Dennis Alonso?
Right. And why does he matter?
Yeah, Anyway, so
Way
moving
off
on.
topic.
Yeah, way. Moving on. Final Fantasy 11, MMO. Like I said, it introduced the first Final Fantasy game in the series, to the main series, to use the real time combat system, where rather than you had that random encounter, you found your enemy, you took out your weapon, and then you started attacking, and as well as it introduced a couple of other things like the whole new system of avatars, your summons, rather than summoning them and like them doing like a special move then going away. They actually like stay by your side for a while. But then again, I think in Final Fantasy 12, no wait, Final Fantasy 12 did come out afterwards. So no, Final Fantasy 11 was the first in the Final Fantasy series to actually do that, where the summons came out and we're kind of next to you.
Which was awesome because, of course, if you can imagine summoning a giant creature to fight for you and just like kind of walking around the map with it following you, like sure, eventually you'd run out of MP and it'd go away or whatever, but it was really cool to be able to do that, and other people could see it, of course, as well. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. What he means by the MP part is like for summoners, you would have to be the summoner job in order to summon them. And what would happen is that when you had an avatar out, uh, it would drain your MP slowly, and when you ran out of MP, they would go away, or you could just dismiss them, and they would go away. And they had pretty much the like your average starters, or like your superstars from the Final Fantasy series, such as Shiva, Ifrit, Leviathan, and I think Diablos as well was in there. Had a couple of other ones, Raham. What was some of the other ones? I forgot.
Finrer, Carbuncle. I can't remember if you mentioned Carbuncle or not. Um,
Yeah, I think that's it. Well, there's probably
did you
more.
say Garuda?
Alexander was there, Garuda. Um, yeah, but anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much Final Fantasy 11 was your standard MMO. It was actually the most popular MMO out when it came out, and this was kind of before WoW. But then WoW came out and kind of like took over. But yeah, it was really popular when it first came out, and eventually Square Enix decided to make a second MMO, which would be Final Fantasy 14.
Final Fantasy XIV, whenever it did come out, originally, let's just start with the beta, for instance. Whenever I saw the beta and joined the game and first tried out the beta, it was beautiful. The graphics in the game, moving up from Final Fantasy XI to the graphics of Final Fantasy XIV, was so phenomenal. It was so beautiful. The combat and the leveling was not that great. I mean, it wasn't hard, it was incredibly easy to level. Most of the enemies were really easy to kill. And whenever you leveled, it was not hard to switch from one job to another because they were all so similar. But again, this was a beta, and assumption being that the beta graphics would be the same as the real game, but everything else would probably change.
Yeah. A major problem with the game at release was that it was unfinished. I was actually in the alpha of the game months before the actual release, and at the time, even I saw that the game wasn't even ready. But I figured, hey, since it's alpha, I shouldn't expect too much. But when I saw the beta come out and I tried it, and it was kind of the same, like there were still a lot of big problems. I figured that they would push the game back, but as it turns out, it turned like now we know that what happened was Square Enix kind of wanted to push the game to come out anyway, and it caused a lot of problems, mainly server lag, and the combat system wasn't complete. It was all over the place, and it caused the director of the game to step down. If I'm correct, he was one of the actual first directors to in from the original Final Fantasy. When Final Fantasy first was created.
And all in all, it was a very sad ordeal. The game, at its base, any Final Fantasy game is just going to be good in the end. I mean, I've never played one that wasn't good in the end, and it was so sad to see the series. I mean, I personally felt like it was just horrible. Like I played it and it was okay, but for the most part, once the game released, I played it maybe a month and just upright, okay, this is done. I'm done. I quit and didn't go back to the game for quite a while.
Yeah, and it was the same with me. I got on, and essentially there were people playing, kind of like you could have probably put everyone in every server together in like one server, and the game had a lot to it. Like it wasn't horrible. It was just unfinished, and it was like the good thing though. Like they kind of treated it like a beta again. They didn't charge anybody. They extended the free trial for like a year and a half, and the game was okay. Like every like couple of months they would update it and change it. And again, it was pretty much treated as a beta from that point on. One of the best things I found about the game was the open world. A game that looked that pretty, and it was still open world. You can walk in and out of major cities, and with no uh, loading screen or zone. And it was uh, it was great, but there was like a problem. Everyone kept to themselves. Being an MMO, you want to play for the interactions, but people who played just kind of played just to say that they played it and got whatever the game had to offer. And they were pretty quiet. Nobody really talked to each other. It was kind of hard to even make friends or for you know just to even interact, like talk with anybody. Everyone really kept quiet.
So over time, as Dennis said, the game slowly got better. Every time month or so, they would release a new patch, and as things kept going, as the game got better and better, more and more people joined, more things were put in the game, and over time, it was a little more social. Eventually, we ended up in a link shell together, which is how we now know each other.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what a link show is, it's pretty much it's kind of like a guild, almost, where it was these this kind of like you create a link show. When you create a link show, it's like a group, and you could invite people to this group. You could have multiple groups where you could talk to everyone as you please, and it was uh it was how, again, like how we met. We both joined a group called Notorious, and from there, we kind of like uh, leveled together and whatnot, and we eventually figured out that we both shared the same interest, and then from there, the game got a little better. When like that's the one thing that the game really, for to me, really offers, is just that when you find people who are cool, who aren't full of themselves, who are genuinely like a person would you like to hang out with. When you play an MMO with somebody like that, you it becomes way more fun, because now, rather than being just this massively open game that really has no content, you have people who you're playing co-op with to do all these random quests or whatever, and just have fun.
And even if you aren't doing random quests, I mean, you can only have so much fun with this, but go out, find some monster that's really tough, and get a group of friends together to go fight it. And whether you win or whether you lose, if it's just a jack around, I mean, going out there just to fight something, just to have that fun. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we've had a great time dying and laughing about how horrible it was.
Yeah, it really does make a difference when you have other people you kind of enjoy playing with. So eventually, the game shut down for about almost a year, and reason being is because they had announced previously that the game was going to be relaunched, um, and pretty much remade with the code name Final Fantasy 14 2.0, which later would be called Final Fantasy: A Realm Reborn.
Actually, on a note, just to intersect here, whenever Final Fantasy version 1.0 was ending officially, while they were like when they went to shut the servers down and all, they actually set it up to have a massive battle with an enemy. And so anyone who was able to get on, mind you, there was so much server lag and so much chaos going on, I was not able to log on for it. But there was a massive battle that you kind of left off on in the beginning of Final Fantasy 2.0. There's a video clip that actually shows that battle. I know it showed it for us because we were there. I don't know for a normal player if they would see the exact same thing or if it'd be different, but
Yeah, what that was a very, very smart idea on behalf of the new producer who took over after I looked them up. It's Hiromichi Tanaka. He was the original producer who stepped down, and eventually Yoshi P is what his nickname is. Took over as a producer, and he did bring up the brilliant idea of continuing the storyline and giving us a reason as to why the whole game was being changed. And it was essentially like the end of the world. And like as Matt was saying, uh, towards the end, there was a massive battle where like there's these group called the Garlinians who use like a higher advanced technology was trying to take over. And I don't want to give away too much for anybody who wants to play, but yeah, they pretty much almost they kind of succeeded somewhat, and it kind of caused like the a mass destruction of the world. And your character, who if you played, your character was kind of like teleported into the future, or somewhat. Uh, and then when the new version 2.0 came out, you kind of brought back for those they call the people from 1.0 legacy members, and for the legacy members they brought back your character. And if you didn't play, if you meet certain prerequisites, such as beating certain boss fights at the end of 1.0 and 2.0, they would address you as knowing what you did. But for newer characters, they kind of had a different story, as where you're being introduced as this new person.
and what Dennis means by that, just to elaborate a bit, them addressing you as knowing what you did, he means, oh man, and I don't want to give this away to anyone who hasn't done it, so I guess I understand why you didn't like specify, but basically he means in the storyline, not like other players will address you like that, but in the storyline, certain NPCs will acknowledge that there were heroes in the past, and at some point they might hint towards you being the hero or something, kind of a deal. But real quick, it wouldn't ruin it for you. For version 1.0, I don't think there's any recordings out there of the storyline or anything, and as far as I know, there's not really any way to access that content anymore. Correct?
As far as I know, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. I think you might be able to see some of the old cutscenes in 14 and 2.0. I don't think. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
I don't think so. I think it's all gone. So it wouldn't run anything to say that at least in version 1.0, well, okay, would you be okay with us saying this, Dennis? Saying like what basically happened in 1.0?
Well, they kind of tell you what happens in 2.0, so like it might ruin the story because they bring back they kind of add that feature where they kind of explain what happened in 1.0 in the 2.0 storyline.
I didn't know if that was just for legacy members or if that was a normal campaign as well.
No, because Inoue or Erin is my girlfriend who also plays 14. She didn't because she didn't do the final fights at the end of 1.0. Her character was treated as a new, like a new hero in 2.0, and they explain what happens in 1.0 to her.
Ah, okay, alright, mind. Good to know. Well, okay, never mind. No spoilers for you guys.
So yeah. So finally we get to 2.0. 2.0 relaunched August of last year, 2013, and it was for the most part, it was a success. It was a big success. The game had so many people log in, it caused like massive server lag, and because Square Enix didn't expect that many people to come back solely because of what happened in 1.0. They didn't have enough servers really running, and it caused a real big problem where you couldn't log in because they had login limits as to how many people can log in at one time, as well as server limits how many people can be on the world at the same time. So you had queues of up to like 8 hours sometimes of just waiting just to try to get in. Um, and so that was pretty much a success for them. And for the most part, I think the game has really improved. They did do a lot of great things with the game. The one thing I personally have been pissed off about, I'm not a big fan of zones. That's where where you try to go into another area and you end up having to go through a loading screen. And so in 1.0, there were very, very few of them. Everything else was just open world, but they put a whole bunch of zones in now, and I get, I understand why it helps the game run better, especially since the game has really good graphics, so it's by far very appealing to the eyes. But other than that, the battle system resembles a lot of, I guess, WoW, but that's not really a big, like a big secret. WoW kind of really changed the template as to how a MMO is done. So, but and just for those people who thinking, well, I might as well play WoW. I have a cousin who's a big WoW fan, huge. He played Final Fantasy in 1.0 as well, along with me, and he didn't really enjoy it that much. But when 2.0 came out, he restarted a character, got a group of his friends from WoW, and now they have a lot of fun playing Final Fantasy 2.0, and like they're even on Endgame, and they say it's way more fun than WoW was for them right now.
And of course, the game's evolving all the time. In fact, one of the things that I left off on whenever I last played, there was a certain area of the game called Mordona, and whenever I left the game, it had a specific layout. I'm not about to try to describe it, but basically, in the time that I was gone, a couple months, whenever I came back to the game, they had rebuilt it, and it's not like they changed the game or something. It's not like they destroy areas or anything, but basically, it looks like what they're going to do with the game is make it evolve over the years. So as you're playing the game is evolving around you.
Yeah. So like just to update you on what's happening. Like we both kind of stopped playing back in November, and we just got back again to playing like just this week, maybe like 2 or 3 days ago. And so I noticed that what they're doing is like some areas that used to be like a fort, because remember this game is supposed to be like you know in the future as to 1.0 and 1.0 at the end, it was kind of like an apocalypse kind of thing going on. So they're the point, that's why they named 2.0 a realm reborn. So because they're rebuilding kind of like the world. So what they're doing is, which I think is brilliant. Like I didn't think, they would do such a thing, but it's really smart idea. So you have like these little kind of like forts and outposts that were really basic in terms of like what a fort would be, and you saw like you kind of saw like people rebuilding stuff, but you didn't really pay too much mind to it. But then now when we came back after a major patch that came out back in December called the 2.1 patch, uh, now you have like these forts that were like pretty much under construction now, even more in like even more well built. Like now they kind of look like real forts, like reinforced walls and stuff. And you could see like construction still going on, meaning that, as as Matt said, as you go on, the game is gonna be evolving while time passes, while expansions comes out, new patches comes out. And this is like, to me, it's a brilliant idea. It's really smart, and it keeps the game fresh.
Yeah, it always ticked me off whenever you played a game and like very first city you walk into or something, you see some guy picking up a board and like carrying it around or something, and it looks like construction's being done, and you finish the entire game. You technically, like, your character in essence has spent like years in this game, and yet the guy's still sitting in that first town walking around with a board over his shoulder or whatever.
Yeah, like 18 years and you're still building the same wall.
Yeah, so it's really cool to actually see something being done. Actually, real quick, I'd like to take a moment just to do a throwback here. Whenever Dennis originally mentioned whenever Final Fantasy 1.0 came out and the director ended up stepping down and everything, the game was horrible, yada yada. He and I have had this discussion before, and just a little disclaimer, by no means do we mean to say that the guy who made the game or who was in charge of it at the time, the director who stepped down, by no means do we mean to say that he was a bad director or anything, or that he did a bad job. It's just that the game got rushed and pushed out so quickly that he didn't have a chance to get it where he wanted it.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate that he wasn't given the chance to fix the game, because again, Hiromichi Tanaka. He was from, in Final Fantasy standpoint, he was on the ground floor. He was a part of Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy for the NES, Final Fantasy 2, and then for Final Fantasy 3 was the first game that he actually produced, and he actually produced Final Fantasy 11 as well.
Yeah, so like I said, I just wanted to make sure to throw that in there. I don't want us to get off on a tangent and me forget to give him some credit there.
All right. Well, one last topic before we go, because we're running out of time. I wanted to bring up real quick Final Fantasy 15. It's not an MMO. It's so far. I think it's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. I think it might be on the Xbox One as well. I'd have to look that up. I think it's on both. But Matt, I believe you don't know about Final Fantasy 15, right?
No, I had no clue. I thought you were referring to Final Fantasy XIV version 2.
All right, so this will be this. I'll give a quick explanation so everybody and yourself can know what Final Fantasy 15 is. So Final Fantasy 15 was actually being created years ago when Final Fantasy 13 first came out. You see, Final Fantasy 15 technically is Final Fantasy 13 Versus, which was a game that was being produced. Excuse me, which was being produced as like a side universe to Final Fantasy 13, and it looked amazing. It was supposed to be a PlayStation 3 exclusive, and it was everything that Final Fantasy 13 wasn't, which meaning it was going to be good. And so it had open world, as far as the gameplay showed, and it also had real time fighting. You mean taking out your weapons and just attacking, not that turn based real time hybrid 13 had, and as well as you could even jump into mechs and run around. So it looked amazing. It's essentially, just to put in perspective, Final Fantasy 13 Versus is what X is right now.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to say. It sounds a lot like a Final Fantasy meets X kind of hybrid.
Except this game was out way before X was even thought about. So, like, technically, Final Fantasy 13 Versus would be the first one to would have been the first one to do it. But the game kept getting pushed back, pushed back. We kept hearing little and little about it every year until finally last year, they showed new footage. They even said Final Fantasy 13 Versus. They showed this game footage, and then like at the very end, it like rips off the 13 Verses and puts Final Fantasy 15 on it. So they finally just decided, it's been in the works for so long. We're just gonna make this Final Fantasy 15. Now, as far as it being like the original game we saw, I'm not sure, because the only trailer that came out was during E3 and of last year's E3, and it kind of looked like they changed it. it kind of looks like they made it into like a whole CG kind of thing where you can do actions in the middle of it. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it looked, but that's just how it looks like to me. Which, if it is, it's a real shame because that game could have been like perfect the way it was. Like, but again, from the looks of it, looks like some sort of you really can't control. It's like a movie, and you could just you just happen to be able to like do actions while the cutscene's going through.
Well, for all the time they've had to develop and the fact that they're now making it for the PS4, which means they have even more capability, I would really hope they do more with it instead of apparently less.
Yeah, it would be a real shame if like after all this time they just went back on what they originally wanted the game to be.
Well, something to look forward to and keep our eyes out for, and hopefully it is everything that we wanted it.
That's right. Like that's the only reason I'm actually wanting a PlayStation 4 that and Kingdom Hearts 3, The Division, and Destiny. So that's pretty much our time. We're about to be 32 minutes. Um, Hopefully you guys like our podcast. If you enjoy the shorter version that we're doing right now, please let us know. Send us an email at talkin_games@yahoo.com. That's TALKIN_GAMES@yahoo.com, or follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/talking games. And and also if you just want to troll us as well, we don't mind that either. We would enjoy it, especially if you talk about Matt's obsession with chickens, that getting mauled by them and stuff. But yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, at some point we might read some of the mail we've gotten or something. Considering we've only gotten one email, that wouldn't be a lot, but we might look into that.
Yes. uh Actually, yes, I do want to read that before we go really quick. Mind keeping everyone entertained while I enter the email?
I would juggle or something, but I'm afraid you guys wouldn't enjoy that. Well, I guess I could do a shout out to Final Fantasy XV and continue what we were talking about. Until he finds the email, we will keep our eyes open on the game. Hopefully it's what he said. However, out of the two, honestly, I'm still looking forward to X more than I am Final Fantasy XV, especially if they only release it for the PS4. That kinda sucks.
All right, so here's our first ever fan mail, and it comes from actually a very good friend of ours who we also met on Final Fantasy 14. And they write, "Hello, Toshi and Darks." Again, that's our names in Final Fantasy. Um, I have listened to your first two podcasts, and I just wanted to note a few things. I did not hear the slight fuzzing sound Darks was picking up from Toshi. I knew it, trying to make me paranoid.
Yeah, my bad.
I listened to the podcast from my Windows phone through my Bose wireless speakers, and actually, the first podcast via Skype was not that bad. Thank you. I appreciate that because I was very paranoid about that first episode, especially since these newer ones sound a lot better.
Yeah, I was like horror strucken by it myself.
Thanks for the Flappy Birds update. God, I hated that game. Your commentary on it was cool. The intro, Toshi, on the second podcast was awesome. Thank you very much. I have been working on my movie trailer voice and uh, working on being more, what's the word I'm looking for? Damn it, improvising better those openings. All right. I really like the Wii Fit U stuff, Darks. I have tried the Wii Fit, but prefer the Connect. I love my Xbox 360. I use Connect a lot, and I do like it. Well, being that our friend here, Sif, is what we call her. That's her was her game name. Um, Being that I think you're really awesome, and that I really care about you and your husband, who we know as well, so much that I'll let that slide that you prefer to connect more. Even though I'm a Nintendo fan, but because you're so awesome, that really doesn't matter to me. So I haven't found a lack of games that I like to play, and you don't have to hold controllers. I prefer the exercise type games, though I did play Star Wars with my 8-year-old. One sad thing about my Xbox, though, can't play Zelda. Well, you need a Wii U. That's what you
It
need.
is a proven fact that Xboxes cannot play Zelda.
Because of episode 1, I'm going to buy Bravely Default and maybe a 3DS XL to go with it. And so I don't have to use my kids. Today is payday, and TG, that would be Thunder God, her husband, would want me to have this, lol. Probably a good time to head over to the local GameStop. If I were you, I would go to the local Best Buy, because GameStop is, I don't shop at GameStop anymore. Keep up the good work and the info coming. It seems you have a lot to share. I will share your podcast with my 20-year-old, and his friends are wicked big Nintendo fans. Sif and Thunder God, again, their game names from Final Fantasy XIV, are from Boston. And even though I'm from New York, they're from Boston. We kind of have like a rivalry in terms of sports. I still love them to death. They're really awesome. And as far as her son and his friends, if you're really big Nintendo fans, we are too. We do talk about other games because we want to be universal. But yes, we are Nintendo fans. Wii U all day, every day.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that's it for our podcast. We went a little bit further than we wanted to, but I really did want to read that email. Thanks for reminding me, Darks, because
Anytime.
again, Sif and Thunder God, they're really awesome people, and I am really glad that she took her time to send us an email with some feedback about our podcast. So thank you for listening. We will see you guys next week.
Peace.
Oh God, I forgot how to stop this.